Hello all, this is Rakesh Palraj. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Defreeze Coding. Today we're going to start with a new business case. Consider utility and enterprise, right? We have an electric operations team that need a web application that will display the real-time actual generation data. Generation data means the plant electricity production data versus the forecasted generation data that was generated via the forecasting model. This application will help the operations team to optimize the plant capacity so that they can over our they should so that the over our under generation of electricity can be avoided. That is the business case. Yeah, so let's begin. So this business case talks about a web application, right? So uh, we're gonna discuss the fundamentals. The fundamentals, right? Right now we have two types of web pages: static and the dynamic. The static pages is like it can be created via HTML, JavaScript, and CSS file without any programming language. It's going to have primarily the content, and then it could have some user interaction via the JavaScript, but once uh, once it is being rendered, the the client will not be able to talk back to the web server, right here, right? So the initial request from the from the web browser reaches the web server, and the web browser processes the request and sends the HTML as a response back, and then it's loaded on the web browser. Once that is done, there will not be any more interaction. That is a static web page. So this static web page will be primarily used on a content like this one, right? This is like a content-driven page, so there will not be any user interaction right after that. So this is a very good example of a static web page. Let's moving on to the dynamic web page. Uh, for the dynamic web page, right? The application is created via a programming language. The programming language could be Java or a C Sharp. The code behind will be written in those languages, and then once it is deployed in the web server, uh, once it can be deployed on the web server. From the user could initiate a request from the web browser. HTTP request will go to the web server, and then the code will be the web server will generate a HTML response back based on the code files, and then it will be sent back to the web browser. And then if there are any interactions, right, it will those interactions will happen in the web server. So for example, right, if let's assume in a web page we have the user needs to fill in the address details. Uh, the user selects a state, any state, and then there is another drop down with maybe a county information. Then based on the state, the county details will be displayed. So that piece of logic could be driven from the web server. The user select the state, the request will go to the server, and then the counties associated with those states will be fetched from the database, and then it could be passed back to the web browser. So those interaction needs a web server. So it could be a database interaction, or it could be a web API, and then it could be any resources. Yeah, this article provides a lot of details. You can go through it, and then uh, you can understand. We're going to develop a dynamic web page today for our business case. Um, uh, let's uh, let's let's discuss further. In the .NET world, right, in the legacy system, uh, we were using ASP. We were started with ASP. That's a very old thing, and then it progressed, and then right now we have been using ASP.NET MVC. That's like a most popular framework that's being used. In the ASP.NET MVC, the code behind uh, in the code behind will be yeah, C Sharp. C Sharp will be the programming language, and then we could have a client interaction. That is right, via JavaScript. The client interaction meaning, okay, we could have a form. Let's assume the form has an age field. You need to uh, include a validation to make sure that field only accepts integer, because age is an integer. We don't need to accept any string. Those kind of interaction could happen via JavaScript. So, and the ASP.NET MVC had a combination of C Sharp as a code behind, and then JavaScript as the client side scripting that is needed for validation. So a developer has to learn both C Sharp as well as the JavaScript to successfully create a web application. And then recently, right, maybe a couple of years back, uh, Data released a new concept called Blazor. What is Blazor? So I will share all the links in the description. You can go through it, and then you can understand it better. So uh, what is Blazor? So just explain, right, in a traditional ASP.NET MVC, the client side validations needs to happen via the JavaScript. Uh, so you need to learn JavaScript too. So .NET came up with a new framework that actually minimized or completely eliminated the need of user JavaScript coding. So instead of JavaScript, we could use C Sharp for all the client side interactions or validations. So for the same concept, if you want to do a validation on the age text field, we could still use C Sharp to do it. So that's kind of a cool thing. So that's why the Blazor got very popular. It's a very good tool to very good framework to learn. This is going to be very popular in near future. Okay, so we're gonna start. I'm gonna start into the coding, and then we can slowly uh, discuss many new things in Blazor via the code. Let's get started. So okay, so I have created a folder called Electric Load Trend. All my code files will go to this location. Uh, we're gonna use the CLI, same thing. So I got the CLI created. So this is going to be .NET. New Blazor will be the template. So let's quickly review the template. Let's go back here. Okay. Okay. So this is the page that provides all the templates here, right? We have a template called Blazor Web App. The short name will be Blazor. This is the thing we're gonna use. Uh, so in this, right, we have a couple of parameters that needs can be passed. So uh, we're going to start with this Blazor new. This is a Blazor template name, and then the name of the project is going to be ElectricLoadTrend.Web, and then interactivity. The interactivity piece we're going to discuss uh, a lot in the next few minutes. So here, right, let's look at the interactivity piece, right? There are four different kinds of interactivity. Um, so none is going to be no interactivity. It's going to be static server rendering. It's going to be all static. And then we have a server we discussed, right? The communication will go back and forth between the browser and the web server. And then there is a new thing called WebAssembly. We will take a look at that. And then auto is the combination of the server and the WebAssembly. So in this case, right, we're going to use auto. We're going to be because it's going to be the combination of WebAssembly and the server. And then authentication. I Yeah, authentication type. We're going to say to no none, because we're not going to use any authentication. And then I'm going to use the uh, main method. We're not going to use any top level statements, and the language is going to be C sharp. I'm going to use the output in this directory. I'll make it as double quote. If you don't want it, you can skip it, because right, this Blazor project will create a folder under electric load trend. I don't want to avoid that. I don't want that folder. I want to avoid that. That's the reason I'm specifying the output folder location. You can skip it. It's up to you. Okay, so it did create a solution file. So okay, it created two things, two projects. This is the web. We call it as a server or a main project. This is going to be it will have a main program. Okay, sorry. It will have a main program, and then we have a client project. This will also has a main. Uh, this will also have a main.cs file. So let's take a look at this one. Let me pin this one. Yep. Let's do a pin. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead. So let's look at the structure. So we uh, we have the components under that, right? We have pages. This is the .razor. Uh, that is the uh, file that we will use to build the UIs. And then once it's deployed to the web server, and then the web server will convert this into an HTML and then send it back to the user client. It could be a browser. This one, okay. Uh, we got everything looking good. Before we even proceed, right, we want to look at uh, the hosting model. That is very important. Um, let's let's get here. Okay, in this URL, right, it clearly explains 4 different hosting models, and then we're going to look at the WebAssembly and the server. Let's start with the WebAssembly. The WebAssembly, right? The WebAssembly, right? That's a new thing where the code will be the web browser will compile the code and convert it to a WebAssembly, and then a .NET runtime will also be packaged along with that, and then the Razor component. Those are the UI pages. These will be packaged, and then it will be sent to the client browser. Once the client browser receives it, uh, it can run the WebAssembly because the .NET runtime will be available on the browser, so that it can actually run the WebAssembly, and then it can render the page. This concept will be uh, very handy if you want to avoid the communication between uh, the client browser and the web server, because right, if you have too many, if it's going to be like a large scale application where too many users will be accessing the application, you don't want to bombard the server. You want the maximum interaction on the client browser, so that we have enough resources on the server side to process many requests. Uh, this is a cool thing. So I'm going to show you how it works. So yeah, it says, right, the Razor component .NET and WebAssembly will be downloaded into the browser, right? So yeah, let's take a look at that. So I got this one. I'll do the clear. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be, in this case, right, this is going to be the main project. That's our server project, and the client will be the client. So we have to navigate to the main project. Yeah, this guy has a main project. Let's do the build. It's thinking, so it's building. Okay, cool. Okay, there are no errors, no warnings. Okay, let's do a .NET run. Yeah, this is going to work differently than the console application that we have developed in last few videos. This is going to be the web app, right? So it has generated a URL, and then this is running on IIS Express, so it's been waiting for the request. The two ways we can do it: either you can do a control click to open up the browser, or I would prefer, right, let's go open up a Google Chrome. I'm gonna do a F12. Yeah, let's open up an Edge, so it will be a lot easier. So okay, let's open up a Chrome browser, do F12. This will open up the developer tools, go to network, and then we're gonna hit the link. Once you hit the link, right, you can see, right, We have Blazor.Web.js. That's the important JavaScript file that will download all the uh, web assemblies, and then the .NET runtime environment will also be present within this browser. So we're going to use for the WebAssembly. This is the important piece. So we have it. Let's go to the counter page. Okay, there it is. Right, you can see once I click the counter page, it downloaded all the libraries that are needed to run this page. So you can see, right, there are tons of libraries that that needs to be run. So yeah, let me see. Okay, there it is. Okay. Okay, these we have seen, right, WASM, that's a WebAssembly, that's the browser understands. So a lot of needed libraries are downloaded, and also there will be code files. So ours is, yeah, there it is, ElectricLoadTrend.Web.Client.Wasm. That is our client project that was also downloaded into the browser. So if there are no interactions, okay, the browser will not communicate to the server. uh, in a counter page, right, we wrote a mechanism. Okay, I can explain it. uh, so let's look at the counter page briefly. So on this counter page, right, I think for each click, right, it's going to increment the counter. So that's going to, this piece of logic will run in the browser, because we are not going to interact with the database or web API. Those things needs to happen on the web server because of the security reasons. Okay, you don't want to uh, access the database uh, from your client, that's a browser, or the web API from the browser, due to the security reasons. Okay, if there's a piece of logic that is not need not to be securely protected, those logic can run on the browser. So in this case, I just incrementing the counter, this logic could run on the browser. So I'm going to click here. So it's been running, so there is no more interactions, right? You can see, okay, there is no connections uh, back and forth from the web browser to the server. There is no connection, so everything is running on the client. This is the WebAssembly hosting time. Yeah, it's going to be a little overwhelming, but follow along. I think once you complete this application, you will have a better understanding. Let's let's review this one. We looked at it, right. We have the .NET, the web assemblies that are needed to run the applications, and then we have the .NET runtime that will be inbuilt in the latest browsers, and then we got the Razor components. Everything will make up, and then the client will generate the DOM, and then the page will be rendered. The next hosting model is, right, the server. The server, right. Uh, the server, right, as we spoke about the dynamic server, dynamic web pages, right. In this case, right, once the once the once the user initiates a request, the HTTP request will go to the server here, right. The server is going to compile the code, and then based on the code, right, it's going to create a HTML file, and then the HTML file will be sent back to the user browser, and then the page will be rendered. But if there are any interaction, in this case, right, if it's not a static page, if it's a dynamic page that it needs it, that it needs to get data from the database or web API, uh, a signal or a WebSocket connection will be created, and then the connection will be open. So, right, all the interactions will happen via that connection, right? You can see the signal are here. It could be a WebSocket. So if you read through it, they will explain it. So uh, that's how the communication, the interaction happens. Yeah, we could see this. I can show you this um, here, right. So this one, right, it says InteractiveAuto. So InteractiveAuto is, right, maybe I could have made it uh, yeah, let's make this as an interactive web assembly, so it makes sense. interactive WebAssembly. I'll keep this way. This is for the client. This is for the client. Let's go to the server. Yeah. The so if it's going to be the WebAssembly, okay, if it's going to be a pure WebAssembly, those pages will reside in the client. If it's going to be the server or auto, I think if it's going to be server, it will reside on the server. If it's going to be the auto, then we can put it on the client, I believe. Let's go to the weather data razor. Uh, it has a stream rendering. We will look into it, but right, I'm going to comment this for now. Uh, we're going to do the render mode. Okay, copy this one. We're not going to use WebAssembly. We're going to use server. Yeah, we're going to display showcase it. So let's kill this. Control C is going to kill the shut down the IIS Express here. I'm going to do the .NET build one more time. Let's do .NET run. Yeah, let's copy this one. Yeah, I'm going to launch a new browser. So new tab. I got it opened. Let's hit the link. Okay. We're not going to click on the counter this time, so we're going to focus on the server interaction, right? Let's click at weather. You can see right the weather, right? You see there is a WebSocket. This is the WebSocket. This is the signal, right? There's a uh, connection that's been created between the browser and the web server. So all the interactions will happen uh, via this one. So yeah, so this is going to be really important to understand. Okay, the difference between the WebAssembly and the server. The communication will happen between WebSockets. So uh, if you if you have a knowledge to investigate on the web server, you could see an active connections open on the web server. That will prove that okay, the connections are still open. So yeah, right now the connections are still open. So if I do a refresh, yeah, it's still, yeah, it creates a new connection and then the refresh happens. You can see the data, right now it's 18. If I do a refresh, it will go to the server. It's going to bring a fresh data. So there it is. It bought foot 4. That's the fresh data. So everything happens via WebSocket. Uh, let's let's go back to the rendering model. Understand more. So this page, right, provides pros and cons of different, actually two important hosting model: the server and the WebAssembly. And the server, right, they had enhanced a new feature called stream rendering. Yeah, we will take a look at that also. So here, right, the Blazor server, right. So uh, if it's going, the application is hosted on the server. The initial, it's going to be fast loading. Once you hit the URL, you will get the response back pretty quickly. The code security, runtime, full runtime, everything will be available. But the cons will be, right, the constant network, right. It has to go back and forth between the client browser and the web server, right. The traffic is going to increase a lot. And then if there is a network latency, right, if the user is in a remote location and they try to access the website, then it could be really, really slow. It could be painful. So let's look at the server side rendering, right? The SSR, as it's called, right? So same thing, the concept, right? You request a page, it goes to the web server, we get the response as HTML page, pretty much that's it. So if you want to request another page, same, it has to go to the server and get this next page too. That's how it works. The stream rendering, right? Yeah. So if you look at here, right, I commented out the stream rendering. So what stream rendering is a new concept, what they call it as, right? It's on top of the server rendering. if you want to request something uh, within a page, in this case, right? So we are requesting a weather data. What if it's going to be like a very time-consuming application? You will see the spinning wheel. If it's going to be the server, interactive server, you will see a spinning wheel. It will be spinning until the server sends a response back. That could be like a little annoying. That's where this stream rendering concept has been introduced. So what it is going to do is, right, so whenever the first you when a request has been passed to the web browser, as a first payload, the skeleton or the placeholders will be sent back, so that, right, you will see the uh, web application loaded. In this case, right, yeah, it's going to be really quick, but I'll show you uh, yeah, it's really quick. So I'm going to introduce more delay so that we could reproduce this one. So yeah, let me comment this one and I can explain it better. So how the stream rendering works. Stream rendering is also part of InteractiveServer. So we have a delay right here. So let's make it 2000. Okay, got the URL. Yeah, let me open up a new tab. Okay, get this one. So let's go to weather. You see this one? It's loading, and then it got the data back. So the loading is the placeholder, right? You will get to the page, but some components of the page could have been loaded that that doesn't need any data from the server. Those content will be loaded as part of the placeholder, and then in the second payload, the needed data will be uh, loaded into the appropriate DOM. That's what they say. Okay, the first payload will have HTML page with placeholder content, and the second payload will be the with the actual data. That is part of stream rendering. But the server mode, right? We already discussed, right? It's a server mode. It will use the signal or connection to update the data. So the first time, uh, first initial request, uh, for the first request, the server will produce the HTML page. It will send it back to the browser, and then a signal or connection will be placed. And then any further updates or any further uh, data refresh will happen via that signal or connection that I showed you via the WebSocket. We also discussed about the WebAssembly, right? The WebAssembly piece is the same thing uh, that we discussed. Uh, the first request will go to the request first time. The request will go to the web server, and then as part of the response, we will get the HTML payload, .NET DLLs, the .NET needed DLLs, and then the WebAssembly runtime. Uh, those will be packaged and then will be sent to the client. Uh, and then once that page is rendered, uh, the next uh, the next subsequent calls, it will, yeah, if there is no interaction needed with the web server, everything will happen within the browser. And then if there is a data needed from the web server, uh, those call will happen via HTTP client here, right? HTTP client, that's a difference, right? In this, the web server, the server mode, the connection, the data exchange will happen via SignalR. If it is a WebAssembly, the data exchange will happen via HTTP client. So that's a two different thing. That is also a very important thing. So for if it's going to be WebAssembly, we will be using HTTP client. In our application, we will be creating the uh, WebAssembly page for the load trend. We will be using the HTTP client. And then the auto is the auto, right? This is the new feature that is introduced in .NET 8. In .NET 7, we have only the Blazor server and then WebAssembly. Those will be uh, in a two different project. You can, if you want, you have to decide. Okay, your application is going to use a server project or a WebAssembly project. and then based on that, right, based on the hosting type, you will develop the project. In .NET, right, .NET 8, they introduced a new concept called auto mode. Auto is nothing but a combination of the server and the WebAssembly. They say right, the first visit, it's going to be the WebAssembly, I think. So uh, the first call is going to be the web server. It will hit the web server. It will uh, it will get the response back quickly, as quickly as possible, and then the page will be loaded. Within the background, all the web assemblies and the .NET runtime will be downloaded. For the next subsequent calls, it's going to use those downloaded libraries uh, to update the pages. So it's a combination of both server and WebAssembly. Uh, I think this is going to be a good stopping point. I think I'll look at that. If you have any questions, uh, post it on the comment. I will respond back. That's all I got. Have a good one. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.